After 3 very long years, Stranger Things Season 4 is finally here. Well, at least the first 7 episodes are. I just finished rewatching Volume 1 with some friends, so do you know what that means? That's right, it's time for my official review of Volume 1. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm Michael J, and you are in the perfect spot if you love Stranger Things. If you want to make some new friends or join this wonderful community, all you have to do is subscribe. We've got a Stranger Things channel in the Discord as well. If you want to come talk about all things Stranger Things, just know that going forward from here, there will be spoilers. Duh. Now, this season successfully continued and expanded on where we left off in Season 3, which I think is the most important. They didn't just leave it in the dust or deliver an under par show. I remember how weird it was seeing the Byers move away from Hawkins at the end of Season 3 and thinking, how on earth can they pull off a Stranger Things show with half the kids across the country? I feel like with the cast of characters being split up, along with the 3-year wait, all the average viewers and some of the fans actually felt the most neutral about the show since its start. It had been so long and there's so many new elements. The gang is split up, Elle has no powers, no more Hop. Oh wait, psych, he's alive and a prisoner in Russia. There's just a lot up in the air. Not to mention the giant age gap the kids have now that they're pushing 20 years old. But once again, the Duffer Brothers over-delivered with 4 different storylines this season. And keep in mind, this is a pre-Volume 2 season review, so this is before everyone's reunited for the finale, which I'm really excited to see how they pull off. But we've got the original Hawkins crew with a straight-up horror mystery storyline, with the addition of Robin from last season and the introduction of Eddie, who honestly became one of my favorite characters this season. I can't wait to see him in the finale. Please don't get killed off. We've also got the Byers and Mike in California with the new character Argyle, who just the same has become a great addition to the cast. This is more of a comedy 80s hothead storyline, like a buddy comedy movie, almost nothing to do with horror and mystery and the rest of the plot. And then we have the Hopper storyline with Joyce and Murray trying to rescue him, which turns into an action-adventure film. And then we have Eleven as she revisits her nightmares from the past, which is a full-blown psycho thriller. I was genuinely surprised by how well each of these storylines did on their own, as well as tying into the overall plot throughout the whole show. But they didn't make 4 separate stories and leave it at that. Instead, they are constantly breaking each of those individual stories up into even more little stories. The Hawkins gang is all trying to solve the same mystery, but while Steve and the kids try to uncover the secret of Vecna's curse by looking at the school counselor's records and searching for a pattern, Nancy and Robin split off from the group to go undercover to a mental asylum to speak with Victor Creel and try to figure out how to break the curse. And what's impressive is they do this throughout all of Volume 1 and it works really well. It felt like a video game almost, like one giant coherent story where everyone's working towards one goal structured with multiple different storylines, and it just keeps taking you back and forth between, and the transitions were just so seamless. And then each of these storylines had little side quests occasionally that the characters would bleed off and go take care of, and I was really happy to see that they managed to make each storyline feel like its own little movie in this massive season, and I loved it. I really appreciated how much more time they had to tell their story this season. They wouldn't have been able to pull off so many different storylines and side quests if every episode wasn't over an hour long. I really enjoyed that. Season 3 had a lot of storylines over the 8 episodes we got, and it had a total runtime of 7 hours and 30 minutes, which is pretty long. But this season, so far, we've gotten 7 episodes with a total runtime of 9 hours. That's an hour and a half longer than Season 3, and we're still waiting on the 2 finale episodes, which are combined 4 hours long. This just goes to show that the studio should let these shows and movies be as long as they need to be to best fit the story. If the writers are good and they know what they're doing, let them make it as long as they want. We have gotten so much more content this season, and I couldn't be happier. I know that they did this intentionally, part of to kind of make up for the 3-year wait we had between Season 3 and 4, but I really hope they do the same with Season 5. Please don't backtrack. I feel like if anything, Season 5 will need to be even longer since they're wrapping up an entire show. Now, overall, we had 4 major storylines this season, and I want to address and talk about each of them individually in order of worst to best. And I don't think that this one was bad, but it's just the one that we're going to be talking about first. California. This consisted of the Byers and Eleven, who moved away from Hawkins last season with the addition of the new character Argyle, as well as Mike from Hawkins as he visited for spring break. Eventually, Murray comes out and takes Joyce and leaves the kids for Alaska to start their Hopper journey. And honestly, Murray visiting was literally the best part of this storyline, which goes to say a lot. I can't help but feel yet again Will is being underused this season, and this time, along with Jonathan, I do feel like the California plot is the least interesting of the four, just because it's more of a comedy that's kind of disconnected from the entire mystery of the Creel house and even the Hopper rescue. It just feels like both the Byers kids aren't being used as much as they should be. Will has been third wheeling and being sus up until now, and Jonathan has just been comic relief and is somewhat a dying candle in his relationship with Nancy, turning this into a love triangle with Steve. I'm curious if they're going to go full-blown love triangle in season 5, or if they're just going to try to end Jonathan and Nancy in the finale and let her get back with Steve. But honestly, other than that, nothing much else happens in California. The biggest thing is Elle getting taken and seeing them chase after her. I mean, road tripping to Susie is the biggest thing they've done. Not one of them knows who Vecna is, or even that Hop is alive. I did still enjoy their storyline and their characters, but I just wish Jonathan and Will were being a little better utilized. I just kind of feel disconnected from both of them right now. Will has deserved the spotlight for 3 seasons now. Hopefully in the finale he'll have a little bigger part to play and finally show us what he's been painting. And Jonathan, I feel like they built him up over season 3 and made him into an actual usable character who's helping further the plot. But this time it just feels like they kind of backtracked on that and he's just for comic relief. Next up, the Motherland, Russia. It's hard to rank them from worst to best because I thoroughly enjoyed the storyline. It was also probably the most frustrating of the 4 just because it's a constant struggle to get Hop out of that prison. I really loved the new characters this storyline introduced, possibly the most. Dmitri as the Russian guard who sides with Hopper by the end of it was just amazing. I loved seeing them form a bond, going from enemies to friends ready to die for each other. I don't know what they're going to do with Dmitri in the end. I really hope that they don't kill him off. And Yuri, oh my gosh, one of my favorite new characters overall this season. I was so mad when they turned him into a bad guy this season just because of how much I liked him. He was so funny and crazy that he even gave Murray a run for his money. I'm really hoping they eventually turn him back into a good guy, but there's only so much they can do with him as he'll try to make a quick buck off them at the drop of a hat. Hopper's struggle was the biggest though. The build-up each time he tried to escape and was thwarted became almost too much to keep doing. I was really happy with the demo pit scene, seeing the Duffer Brothers get to do what they want and let a Demogorgon off the leash going full 110%, running around a massive pit eating everyone while they tried to fight it off Sparta style was so awesome. The Demogorgon in the snow looked sick, and all the clips teasing the more Russian stuff for Volume 2 have me even more hyped. It looks like Hop will stumble across more Demogorgons the Russians took from Hawkins last year, as well as part of the mind flare they somehow captured. No idea how they got that and are containing it, but also it looks like some of the monsters are going to escape, and Hop is going to get his hands on that flamethrower Yuri was flexing earlier, and him and Murray are just going to roast some Demogorgons with it in Volume 2. The Russia storyline has me very excited for the rest of this story in the finale. Joyce and Murray were both great as they went to go get Hopper, and Hopper has been amazing in the Russian prison camp. I love the look at his backstory. I wish we got more of it though. I like the monologue and the narration that Hop gave us, but they teased it so much going into season 4. I wished we got more, or it lasted longer, or it talked about his time in New York. Maybe we'll get that in Volume 2 though, who knows. The next storyline I need to talk about is the flashbacks to Hawkins Lab and Elle trying to find her powers. This was so entertaining and was one of the most anticipated parts of this season, I think. I, along with so many others, were so curious and wanted answers on Hawkins Lab, Young 11, all the other numbers, the MK Ultra project, how Brenner survived his death in season 1, and the actual massacre of Hawkins that led to 11's escape at the beginning of season 1. And while it was really cool to see Brenner again, and especially Sam Owen's return and the large role he played in all of this and the other numbers and everything, I feel like there's still a lot of unanswered things in this storyline. Now, granted, it is the main one they're using to narrate Henry Creel turning into Vecna and his motives, which I'm sure we'll get more of in Volume 2. Even Brenner surviving and all the other numbers. I just wish we got more. The flashbacks in the deprivation tank were a really cool way to revisit their time in Hawkins Lab. I was impressed with the CG for Young 11. In some scenes, it looked flawless. Really, really well done. Others, not so much, but it was never too much to take me out of the story. I think it did its job, and just that alone was an accomplishment in aiding the Duffer Brothers' vision to tell their story, and it was really cool to see young Elle on the screen again. Sometimes I did have to stop and remember that we were supposed to be seeing young Elle's memories, and current day 11 just represented current day Elle reliving these moments though. I'm excited to see 11 continue to get her powers back and really unleash on the government and take down that helicopter in Volume 2. This is one of the slower moving exciting storylines this season, but there's just still so much they need to give us answers for. Now, finally, the Hawkins Creel house mystery. I think this was the best storyline of the show so far. It felt the closest to its roots, with a lot of the original gang straight up trying to solve the mystery of Hawkins, the place of interest of the entire show. I think it's safe to say that I loved every single second of screen time the gang here got. It was definitely sad to see Lucas stray from the group early on and kind of turn his back on his friends in hopes to gain popularity. I do think that the wait in his return to the gang was definitely worth it, but there was just so much time following the basketball team searching for Eddie. I know they had their role and set the stakes for keeping Eddie hidden and whatnot, but still, I think those were the slowest scenes of the storyline. I loved the 50s flashbacks and Victor Creel and his backstory. It was so nice to see Robert Englund step in and take on his own character this season. I loved all the mini side quests that this storyline had the most. Nancy and Robin going to the library and the asylum was amazing. Steve babysitting the kids was golden. And even the big kids going to the Upside Down was spot on. I had so much fun watching them go full Scooby-Doo mode in this rated R horror mystery. And I love that we're finally getting to address the mystery and the origin of the Upside Down and its presence in Hawkins. It's about time they started giving us some answers to our questions in this show, and this storyline is the one that they've been doing it with. And also, Sadie Sink's performance as Max this season was unmatched. That girl deserves all the praise and opportunities this show will bring her tenfold. I was so impressed, and I think everyone was. Dear Billy was probably the most emotion I've felt in a single moment of this show this far. It was on the same level of Elle reading Hop's letter to her after she died. This storyline also had the strongest new characters. Eddie instantly became one of the gang and is such a great character. I loved his chemistry with all the other kids. I feel like he deserves to be in season 5. Chrissy as well was just amazing. Their chemistry together was so good, especially for it being both their first times on the show. She instantly became a Barb where everyone wanted more. I'm really excited to see Hawkins' gang rescue Nancy and reorganize before launching their attack on Vecna in Volume 2, which, by the way, let's talk about Vecna. It was so refreshing to have such a terrifying physical baddie this season. The Upside Down is a crazy place. They could make any monster come out of there and we would believe it. But they literally gave us the boogeyman this season. I love how much mystery and backstory there is to him and the efforts they went to make him almost entirely practical on set with the actors. It really paid off. You can see the true terror on each of their faces when they're looking at such a scary, inevitable villain. I really liked that he truly felt more sentient and grounded, I would say. It was cool to have more of a character built up that we could learn about too. I feel like we're going to get a lot of monologues and people explaining stuff in the finale to start setting up season 5. His curse over people is so crazy and scary. Just seeing someone see the clock signs them off for an inevitable death and trying to figure out how to survive it and escape that was such a good plot point this season. I love the opportunity it gave Max to really open up so we could finally see who she is. I hope they don't take her away from us in the finale. I heard she's subscribed to Michael J, so I think she's fine. I think Vecna only targets people who aren't subscribed, so you guys better watch out if you're not subscribed. I mean, all you have to do is go down and smash that subscribe button. But speaking of, I think I might make a video on this, but something that you kind of need to address, or at least when reviewing the show, is the age gap. As you know, 3 years of puberty changes a lot about these cute little kids. Going into the show 6 years ago, they were 14, 15, already playing 11-year-olds. And while the show jumps 4 years and 4 seasons, all the kids are now in their late teens, early 20s, and you can really see the difference this season, more than ever. You've got these 20-year-olds fully matured playing 15-year-olds. And while it is very noticeable, I don't think it's that big of an issue. And that wouldn't be the case for any other show, but more specifically with this one. The fans have such a strong love for the show that most have become very invested behind the scenes, following all the actors on social media and watching them grow up and mature in real time so they know what to expect going into season 4. But if this happened for a show or something 20 years ago, no shot. Everyone would call them out on it and it would be much more of a problem. I'm just really happy that it wasn't an issue because it never affected the story or the tone of the show. If anything, they decided to prematurely mature the show with the actors instead of the characters. The elements and tone are so much more intense along with the actors being young adults now. It would be weird if they kept the same level of intensity as season 1, since the characters are supposed to be 15 now in the show. I think the instance where you notice it the most is for those that binge the entire show, watching season 1 to 2 through 3 and then seeing 4 take place shortly after. I can see where it'd be pretty noticeable there, but luckily enough, it wasn't as big of an issue as it could have been. And I think this might become my new favorite season, which I feel like says a lot, because it's one thing to be the biggest season, but to become the favorite one is a whole different level. And at this point, it's almost become apples to oranges. Season 1 was literally worlds apart from this latest season. It started off as a quiet town supernatural mystery show to a full-blown interdimensional story overlapping 4 big storylines over with each other with 4 times the characters, and now they're fighting to save the world. So it's kind of hard to pick a favorite between these two. Season 1 is the OG, and it will always have that classic feel that just they can't replicate again at this point in the show. But Season 4 is just so much more on every level and way longer too. For any of those who binge watched season 1 through 3 before 4 dropped, I'm sure that they noticed that the camera work, the dialogue, the storytelling, the acting, and the CG have all improved so much. There's so many creative shots, and while they've gone full horror mode with the straight up haunted house this season, there's still so much comedy and laughing and heartfelt moments throughout the entire show. The shot of the kids on their bicycles in the real world with the camera flip to the other kids riding their bikes in the upside down was beautiful. And the one-shot take of the shootout in the Byers home in California was so well done. There was so many moments like these throughout the entire season, not to mention the beauty at the end of Dear Billy was a true cinematic masterpiece. There's a cliffhanger at the end of every episode that makes you have to start the next one right away. I really liked how much they've matured the show just in the last year. There's full-blown torture, drugs, blood, bone snapping, eyeballs getting squished, and they did a really good job at setting the tone for this at the very end of episode 1 with Chrissy's death, which honestly, we didn't get enough Chrissy this season, just like Barb. Apparently, they already wrote and I think filmed her death before they filmed the scene in the woods where Eddie and Chrissy just played off of each other so well. I think they said a lot of that was just the actors just going off. I can't help but wonder if there's an alternate universe where Chrissy and Eddie end up together and Chrissy goes to see his band play if he wasn't trying to save the world and evade all of Hawkins. But just like the kids who are now all adults, they decided to crank up the intensity on the show and it worked perfectly. If they hadn't, it just wouldn't have worked out the same. I think they nailed it. I'm glad that I was truly terrified in some moments, and more than once terrified for certain characters to make it out of certain situations. Especially Max. Holy cow. Episode 4 Dear Billy on its own was so incredible. Possibly one of the best episodes of the entire show. I was shocked that 4 episodes in and this season had a tear going down my face. I think season 3 was the first time I actually shed a tear during this show, and that was post-finale when Elle was crying reading the letter Hop wrote for her. This season did that in half the time, and we still have the finale and a major character for them to kill off. I think it's safe to say the Duffer Brothers really learned from the past on how to draw out an emotional scene and pull the audience's heartstrings. It was so dramatic and theatrical, I would have given anything to watch this in a massive theater with a live audience for the first time. Watching Avengers is one thing, but could you imagine watching a masterpiece like Stranger Things live for the first time in a room with 100 other fans? A core memory of mine is watching the Star Wars movies, which I've seen a million times, together with all the fans at Star Wars Celebration a few years ago. The emotions I felt, the cheering, the clapping, I can't imagine how electric the air would feel if we got to see Dear Billy in theaters. Everyone would have goosebumps and there would be tissues in every aisle. Now, I also wanted to talk about what I was looking forward to the most going into this season based on the cliffhangers from last season along with the trailers, and see how those panned out after the fact. First was 11 getting her powers back. I think since she lost them 3 years ago, one of the biggest questions everyone had was how on earth is she going to get them back? We were thinking maybe Brenner would help her, or there'd be something that pushed her to the edge and brings out so much emotion or rage that she triggers them coming back on her own. Or even another theory was Hopper getting zapped by the explosion at the end of season 3 would give him some sort of support powers that would develop and help bring back 11's powers, and then they could go on to fight the villain together, father and daughter style. And then when it came around to it, they basically just got Elle to agree to go down to the underground lab where Brenner tried to help 11 unsuppress them and push her to the point where they returned. And while I didn't hate it, I feel like my expectations were a little too high. Sam Owens coming to her and literally saying, "Please come back or the world will end," was just a little more realistic or grounded, I guess, but still.
I don't have my powers.
What if I told you there was a way to bring them back?
Next was Dear Billy. When they released the episode titles and we saw this one, I think everybody freaked out. We figured that Vecna would be using Billy in some sense to get to Max, but holy cow did this one over-deliver. This was the single biggest payoff of the entire season and I couldn't be happier. It would be cool to see a little more Billy, but still, I think it was flawless. And then next for me personally was the demo pit fight. I was really looking forward to all of the Russia storyline, but especially the big showdown with the prisoners and the Demogorgon they teased in the post-credit scene of season season 3. When they showed us that poster and we found the hand-to-hand combat weapons laying in the snow next to a dead Demogorgon, I just knew that we were going to be in for a treat. And while the scene was so freaking awesome, I kind of wish that it lasted longer. I know. I think it was very realistic that it ended so shortly, as a Demogorgon would literally just rip through everybody, one-shotting them, but the Demogorgon going 100% was just so cool to see. I kind of wanted more. Next was Vecna. I think the biggest thing being his appearance, which honestly, again, they over-delivered on. It was so cool to see him be completely practical. So much respect to Bauer for going through that and the Duffer Brothers for taking the gamble. I think it really paid off big time. There was 1 or 2 shots where it looked like he had a tiny Grinch belly just from all the prosthetics he had on, and it definitely hindered his physical movement and made him slower, but that was kind of true to the character. He was supposed to be a slow, sauntering, terrifying villain who was always chasing you. I was really impressed with how it turned out. I hope they release a lot of behind the scenes after Volume 2, or even a full behind the scenes documentary. I would love that. I love what Disney does with its shows, and after they release the full season, they release a full season's worth of a documentary. I think they should do this with Stranger Things. So much work and time and effort and money goes into it, they might as well release a full another season's worth of show just on the behind the scenes aspect. I would give anything to see the actors the first time they saw him all Vecna'd up. And then finally is the massacre at Hawkins. And just like Dear Billy, I think it's safe to say that the first time we saw this title, we all went a little crazy. The big moment leading up to Elle's escape at the beginning of season 1, finally getting to see the other numbers in MK Ultra, so much that we wanted to see. And while it delivered in a lot of areas, unfortunately it under-delivered on the actual massacre part. And I'll get into it more in a minute, but I wanted the carnage. I wanted the true bad guy to be established and reveal themselves here. But I think those were my most anticipated things going into this season. Some over-delivered, some under-delivered. Next, I also have to say something about them still using the binge release model. It's wild they work for 3 years on a show, spending $30 million each episode, and it comes out day 1, 7 episodes, 9 hours long, and everyone sits down, binges it, and is done with it in 1 day. And just like that, everyone's done watching it all. It's a good thing that the show's as good as it is, and it gives fans so much to talk about after they watch it, because it would be so sad to see something so massive die off in a week because of the release format like it is. And I think dropping it in 2 parts was a great step in the right direction for season 4. Even the first half they dropped was still an hour and a half longer than season 3 was, and just look how much people are talking about it. It's completely taken over Twitter, and every day there's a new article speculating what's going to happen in the finale. Honestly, this might be unpopular opinion, but I would love to see them try out a weekly release format. There's just something about it that you can't get by dropping a whole show at once. Being on the edge of your seat for an entire week and wanting to immediately talk about it with your friends after each episode is something that we don't get to do with this show. I can't sit here and analyze each episode each week and watch them multiple times before the next one drops in a week. You watch the whole thing and it's done. If it weren't for the massive cliffhanger and a post-credit scene with season 3, people would have just moved on to the next show in no time. It's really nice that Stranger Things has so much rewatchability value. Not only can you watch it again by yourself and still have an amazing time and it stay entertaining throughout the whole show, but you can also watch it another time with friends to see their reactions and talk about it with them. And it got me all excited all over again. I wanted to wait until I rewatched it before dropping my official review just to see how much I missed and really take it all in. But still, Disney Plus, HBO Max, and Amazon have all adopted to the old school weekly release format because it works better. They're constantly being talked about and staying relevant. Netflix's refusal to adapt to this to keep them in everyone's mouth has them losing subscribers and their audience to the point where I'm worried about the future of Stranger Things. They've teased that after the show ends with season 5, they are going to be doing some Stranger Things spin-off shows. I should have a video out talking about all the ideas that they should do for the spin-off shows. Definitely be on the lookout for that, but I really hope they're not completely exclusive to Netflix with these, because I don't know how long Netflix is going to last, and if it dies in the next 5 years, I'd still like to see Stranger Things outlive it and keep on going. They could do so many good spin-off shows. 2, 3, 4, 5, I wouldn't be mad. They could do it and make it entertaining. There's so many opportunities for pocket stories in this massive universe they've created, and I don't want to see it die because Netflix can't get its crap together. I think dropping the binge model would give all their shows a lot more longevity and relevance. When everyone can watch it at the same pace, everyone can talk about it together. You don't have to wait and make sure everyone else has had time to sit down and watch all 9 episodes. You can talk about each episode as it releases. Talking about a show with others who love the show is honestly one of the best parts of having a good show, and with the binge model, they make it so hard to fully enjoy this show. Now, along with all the good, there was a few things I was disappointed with this season, mainly how Hopper survived. I just made an entire video going over this, a 3-year-long follow-up you could say, but basically there was a lose-lose cliffhanger last season. Hop was stuck on the other side of this massive malfunctioning Russian portal gun, and with no way out, he agrees to sacrifice himself so Joyce can save the entire world. Of course, she shuts it down, it explodes, vaporizing everyone in the room, and Hopper is dead. And then, just kidding, we learn he's still alive and in Russia. So then we theorize all these plausible ways he could have survived, from using the ladder we found hidden behind him to go down and escape through a door on a lower level, to using it to go into the portal to protect himself from the blast. There was so many different elaborate possibilities that would have made for such a great explanation. But just because they didn't have time or think it would be a pivotal part of the story, they just completely breeze right over it, and their explanation was, yeah, he just jumped down and fell to the ledge Black Widow style. But then how did he survive the explosion and the lightning that disintegrated everyone in the room? Unfortunately, it felt like a major missed opportunity and kind of a cop-out explanation. Same thing happened with Brenner. We've been waiting 3 seasons now to see what happened to him after he was attacked and supposedly killed off by this Demogorgon. How did he survive that? How did he come back from that? And then when they do introduce him this season, he doesn't even get a flashback. Just a little scar, no explanation. That kind of disappointed me too. And I mentioned Will and Jonathan feeling underutilized, but these were my biggest complaints this season. There were some issues with Henry Creel's motives and why he wants to end humans and what he wants to do with the world when he asks Elle to join him, but I'm sure they'll explain more in episode 8. It just felt very vague, and it got a little overshadowed by his huge twist of him being Vecna and Henry Creel. There was a few moments where the CG on Young 11 looked creepy. I mean, a lot of the times for the static shots, it was fine, but there were some moments that just were not it. Also, the massacre at Hawkins, I kind of wished we got more. That whole storyline, all the trailers, the posters, the mystery, everything leading up to it, were teasing the massacre so hard, and then when it came time for the big showdown, we didn't see any of it. We were stuck in a basement with 11 just listening to screams. I mean, they could revisit it and show more of 11 escaping in Volume 2, but I feel like it's not likely. I want to see Henry Creel go full Darth Vader on all the younglings Order 66 style. And I don't know if that was too dark, or not important enough, or they just didn't have time, but in my opinion, it would have been cool to see the fight, the rage build up in the antagonist finally being unleashed. Hop's backstory was also cool, but they kinda hyped it up a little too much before the season. I kinda thought we were going to get a little more. I guess they didn't have time for everything, but I think that's it. I'm still curious to see what happened in New York. There's that one box that's still unexplained. I love the soundtrack for this season, especially Running Up the Hill, absolutely gripping. Every time I hear it anywhere now, TikTok, Spotify playlist, drivers blaring it as they're going down my street, I love hearing it. It instantly brings me right back to Dear Billy, that end scene of Max running for her life. I think they did a really good job at tying it so well to the scenes and the character with so much emotion that as soon as you hear it, it just brings you right back. I'm glad they finally got around to explaining things this season. 3 seasons in, we really needed it, and they're finally giving it to us. Perfect timing, and I can't wait for more info. They did so much this season, but there's still so many questions I have. So many things are unknown, and I love that we're finally getting to explore these things and learn about them alongside the characters in the show. I think they did a really good job leaving us before the finale with no idea who they're going to kill off. There's so many characters now, it's almost inevitable that they're going to kill off a main character, but like who? They've given everyone unsaid things that will give them a super emotional death, making them a target. They can't kill off Elle, I don't think, because without her, there's not much of a chance of defeating the Mind Flayer next season, but Max, they've been toying with all season, and those letters, we have to circle back to those letters. They could literally kill her off and do the same thing they did with Hopper last year and have everyone read their letters sobbing while Max narrates and we all cry. Mike, not the top pick to get killed off, but before they took 11, they got in a big fight because he never says I love you. They could have him sacrifice himself to save 11, and as he's dying in her arms, his last words to 11 are finally, I love you, and boom, everyone's crying. Eddie all season has been disappointed in himself from running from things nonstop. If he finally stands up and doesn't run, he could save the gang and sacrifice himself like Bob and Billy, dying a hero's death. Even Steve, all season long they've been telling him that the kids don't need a babysitter. If he ends up doing something to save save the kids and sacrificing himself, he will literally die the babysitter, giving his life for his kids. I think the cliffhangers really were well done this season, and now more than ever, they would have benefited from releasing the show weekly over the course of 2 months. We would be going crazy like little crackheads on all the cliffhangers. Yeah, so much hype that would last for so long. Come on, Netflix, get with the program. I really do think that season 4 was worth the 3-year wait, which says a lot, but I wouldn't mind if it didn't take 3 years to get to season 5. I know it'll be great, but 3 years was just a lot. It was really long, and the kids grew up a lot in that time. Take your time, just know that we're all waiting for you. Please tell me your thoughts. What did you think of the show? Tell me in the comments in the Discord. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video. Go watch this one until then. But I will see you in the Discord. Peace.